or one of you, I can't remember, somebody said, if everybody's losing, who's gaining? I mean, this policy has not happened by accident. It's not because no one's gaining and the people in power are just, delusional and, someone is gaining. And, I don't mean to sound like one of those protesters out in the street, but maybe I should be. I mean, the big corporations, the big banks, the big financial centers are having record profits. 6 years after the crisis, you saw the figures. The profits are at record levels. But as Alberto said, there's no investment, or at least no increase in investment. So somebody's winning from all these policies, not only the trade, but the financial policies, the monetary policies, and there are very powerful interests at stake. And it would take, as Tom was saying, a real shift in our ideas and in the balance of political forces to change that. And the world may have changed to the point we're going back to the kind of relatively closed economies that we had in the time of import substitution may not even be possible. If you think about the changes in global transportation and communication and the internet, I mean, even our ability, if I want to co-author with one of you folks, I just use my computer. We don't even have to see each other. The world has changed, and I don't know how much we can put the genie of globalization back in the bottle, and I think that's a real challenge for us. Now, someone, it was you, Pablo, asked about the welfare theory. Well, it's very beautiful in the theoretical models. It's in all the textbooks, and it makes a lot of assumptions which don't hold necessarily in reality, and it also ignores a lot of features of the real world today. So, for example, it all assumes full employment, right? So then, well, even if somebody's a loser, then the winner can compensate the loser, and there's this aggregate gain. But when there's, deep and persistent unemployment, or we only have full employment when we have a financial bubble and not after it pops, that we don't have one of the fundamental assumptions in which all those nice welfare gains are going to happen. And so we're not on the nice, production possibility frontier. We're inside it somewhere, and there's no predictions from the conventional theory about that. And then there's the fact that the so-called trade agreements, I think they've had very good marketing because they're sold as free trade. It sounds so nice. What would be wrong with that? Libre comercio, right? But, as I teach my students, even yesterday, when I really apologize that I could not be here yesterday, I was teaching my students. Trade agreements like NAFTA, the Telecan, are both more than free trade and less than free trade. They're less because, the trade is not completely free. Look at agriculture, look at, trucks. I know the Mexicans will always mention trucking, the Canadians will mention softwood lumber. But aside from all the exceptions to free trade, wherever it's convenient, there's so much more. And I think Tom mentioned this, the provisions for investor rights, intellectual property protection, et cetera, et cetera. This is the big US agenda. And it was, NAFTA was the first trade agreement that embodied those things, and it was the precedent. All the subsequent US trade agreements have incorporated those features, and this new one, the Trans-Pacific Partnership, I'm trying to find out how that is said in Spanish. Partnership? Sociedad Trans-Pacifico. Now, they say it's going to be NAFTA on steroids. Now, we don't know what's in the negotiations. Mexico is part of this, and Canada, and the United States, and 9 other countries around the Pacific Rim. Chile, and some other Latin American countries, and several Asian countries, including Japan. We don't know what's in the negotiations because they're secret. We have had some leaks. And from the leaks, it appears that these issues are what the US is really after. For example, protection of the pharmaceutical companies to have very long rights for their patents, which would make medicines, drugs more expensive in the developing countries and therefore be contrary to public health, but it would fatten their profit margins. And so, this is the way the world is going. And we'd better work on the ideas and on the politics because otherwise this train of the TPP, Trans-Pacific Partnership, is coming down. It's going to, in some way, I think, either replace or supersede NAFTA if it is passed, and it's going to set a whole lot of new rules. Of course, there is actually opposition. Now, it's interesting, in the US Congress, both the left and the right, Elizabeth Warren and Bernie Sanders on the one side, and who's that crazy guy from Kentucky, Rand Paul, on the other side, and people like that are not wanting the fast-track authority for passing the TPP. There's no way it's going to pass this year. Well, they don't even have an agreement yet, but they will not authorize TPP in a year of congressional elections, I assure you. But you know how they do it in the US. They wait until right after the election, and then they pass whatever is unpopular. And then they wait till everybody gets over being angry, and then they go back and do it again the next time. Right, Tom?
That's exactly how it works.
That's exactly how it works. So, yeah, anyway, those are just a few responses.
Gracias. Jaime, ¿quisieras tomar la palabra?
Sí, cómo no. Bueno, voy a contestar a la pregunta que hace Roberto Cabral, que es una pregunta muy importante y nada fácil, que es la relación entre política cambiaria, salarios reales y mercado interno. Si entiendo bien la pregunta de Roberto, se puede resumir de la siguiente manera. Un tipo de cambio alto y competitivo implica, a corto plazo al menos, implica salarios reales más bajos. Y en la medida en que la economía norteamericana esté en un proceso de muy lento crecimiento, las ventajas limitando de esa manera las ventajas que sobre las exportaciones puede tener un tipo de cambio alto, el efecto depresivo sobre el mercado interno puede más que compensar, digamos, las ventajas que sobre la demanda por exportaciones tiene un tipo de cambio alto. Tengo varios comentarios. El primero es que creo que el marco en el que razona Roberto sigue siendo muy apegado a lo que llamé, digamos, el enfoque tradicional de ver los efectos del tipo de cambio, en el sentido de que se ve el efecto de un tipo de cambio alto o de una depreciación cambiaria en términos de sus efectos sobre la demanda por nuestros productos en el extranjero. Al abaratarse el precio en dólares de esos productos, aumenta la demanda por nuestros productos, un efecto sustitución, digamos, por parte de los consumidores extranjeros en favor de los productos que se producen en el país. Yo creo que ese es un efecto en muchos casos, pero no es el efecto más importante. Creo que el efecto es no tanto que los precios en dólares caigan de nuestras exportaciones, sino el efecto de rentabilidad y que opera entonces sobre la inversión. Entonces, el efecto de demanda principal, se da sobre la inversión.
Sí.
Es cierto que el efecto de corto plazo sobre salarios reales va a ser negativo. No hay que exagerarlo. En primer lugar, un tipo de cambio real alto significa un precio de los bienes comerciables relativo a todos los bienes no comerciables más alto. No solo se abarata el trabajo en términos de productos de bienes comerciables, se abaratan todos los bienes no comerciables en términos de bienes comerciables. Se abaratan las tarifas eléctricas, las telefónicas, las tarifas del autotransporte de carga, de los ferrocarriles, etcétera, etcétera. Son todos los bienes no comerciables que bajan de precio relativo en relación a los bienes comerciables. Y en la canasta de consumo de los asalariados, los bienes comerciables tienen todavía hoy la mayor parte de la canasta de consumo. Y esa relación salario-bienes no comerciables no se modifica, ¿no? Además de eso, yo creo que si el efecto sobre la inversión va a ser importante por la vía del canal de la rentabilidad, creo que a largo plazo, eso, digamos, nos llevaría mucho tiempo discutirlo a fondo, pero tengo trabajo sobre el tema. A largo plazo, el efecto vía mayor inversión, empleo y productividad y por esa vía, salarios reales, vía empleo y productividad, contrarresta el efecto de corto plazo negativo, ¿no? Finalmente, para volver al tema de si el efecto de demanda negativo que puede tener vía salarios reales puede más que compensar o no el efecto positivo que opera a través de la rentabilidad y sobre la inversión. El impacto de un tipo de cambio real alto no es solamente un impacto sobre la rentabilidad del sector exportador y de manera más general de los sectores de bienes exportables. Es también, y esto es muy importante tomarlo en cuenta, un impacto sobre la rentabilidad de los bienes importables, es decir, de todos aquellos bienes que compiten con importaciones. Y aquí el impacto de demanda, ya sea directamente o indirectamente a través del efecto de rentabilidad, es positivo. De manera que creo que, aunque a corto plazo pueda haber efectos, digamos, contraccionistas, sobre todo en caso de una devaluación brusca, creo que nadie está hablando de eso realmente, sino de depreciar el tipo de cambio real y mantenerlo en un nivel alto. Me parece que los efectos de corto plazo en conjunto son positivos y sobre todo a largo plazo favorables al crecimiento económico, ¿no?
Bien, gracias. Le damos la palabra a Thomas Palley y como es de casa Ignacio, bueno, pues aguanta vara hasta el final. Gracias.
Well, Roberto, I don't really have too much more to say on the subject. I think that stagnation is going to become the issue, the issue of the next 5 years. When it's here, it's arrived. I've actually been waiting for it to arrive because I always thought that after the crisis, people were optimistic that it was such a devastating failure of the economics profession combined with such a deep crisis that it would force change. Well, I never thought that would happen, and I wrote a paper that in 2009 said, no, there's going to be a pushback, a response. The opportunity arises when the response fails, when they fail to push it back to the new normal. And therefore, that's sort of the moment we're at now, and I talk about this. Is this good enough? And that's where sort of the political challenge is. And of course, not only that, will it last? Again, I have this continual feeling, uneasiness that the thing is, you know, it's the Wile E. Coyote economy, again, running on the basis of sort of financial support. But we have to think about one possibility here, is that we actually have a new form of welfare capitalism. It's welfare for capitalists. That's one way of thinking of QE. I mean, they bailed out everybody in the US except the household sector. I mean, the banks were insolvent, just in the same way that household balance sheets were broken because asset prices, but they gave banks an injection of equity through the top, and then they said, with that injection of equity, you now have access to the Federal Reserve to refinance at 0%. And anyone can survive that, and they can do that again. So this is going to play out over a much longer time. We have to be quite patient here in waiting for things to develop. It is a new concept because we didn't have this. In the 1930s, we had the Great Depression. And that was disastrous but clarifying. So clarifying that it produced World War II and it produced the welfare state. I mean, God help us, we don't want to go there again. But this time around, we avoided the Great Depression, and we have this kind of funny condition called stagnation. We're going to have different arguments emerging about it. I'm actually in the middle, sort of halfway through a book on this subject, about what I think it is, and also trying to plot out what the debate will be. You're going to get different arguments about its causes. I come from a Keynesian, Kaletskian position. It's obviously, therefore, rooted in some sort of demand failure. There are going to be other people, and you can see people like Robert Gordon surfacing around, that it's something to do with technology, innovation failure. And this we're going to have to, this is how these debates play out. We're going to have to try and sort it out. I have one deep fear in the background of my mind about, is this good enough? In some ways, in the US, I'm kind of beginning to think that what we've moved to is a shrunken economy. We've dumped 5% of the labor force. That's really what, if you look at the employment population ratio, it was 63%, it's now 58%. We've just pushed them out of the picture. And can we then sustain a reasonable enough high rate of unemployment when we only have to find jobs for 95% of the labor force? And we kind of disappear, the others disappear, they go off the statistics because they don't get counted as unemployed, they don't have political pressure. This gets very, very, very intriguing for us to figure out the theory and to, very importantly, the theory, we need to have a policy prescription and we need to link that to some sort of politics. And we've got to do this all together. That's new ground for our discipline. And we've got to be able to force our way into many different spheres, the academic sphere, the media sphere, the political sphere. Really got to, the role of the public intellectual in economics is back at a time like this.
Gracias. Ignacio.
Gracias, seré muy breve. Me referiré solamente a los comentarios muy interesantes de Delberto, ¿verdad? Porque creo que ya Pablo resolvió su problema de que va a escribir. Yo sé que tiene un montón de cosas que escribir, no sé por qué dijo que no, ya no voy a poder escribir ese artículo. Coincido con Robert, tiene mucho que escribir. Yo creo, Delberto, que este asunto del estancamiento, bueno, pues es un fenómeno que se presenta en la dinámica de la economía capitalista y se ha presentado muchas veces en la historia. Y yo sigo confiando en que la teoría que se ha encargado de ese fenómeno sigue siendo útil para explicarlo. Desde el punto de vista de Keynes y Carver podría ser un enigma el problema, pero depende si estamos pensando en un modelo de crecimiento wedge-led o un modelo de profit-led, eso depende también. Pero me parece que es perfectamente posible explicar con ese argumento, porque, bueno, en Carver la productividad es endógena, pero igualmente es endógena a la demanda. Entonces, si los salarios no crecen, no habría motivo para que hubiera este efecto, este proceso acumulativo, de causación acumulativa del que habla Carver. Coincido contigo, y con esto termino, con esto que decía de que los salarios son, digamos que al final del día el ancla de la inflación. Yo tengo también algunos trabajitos modestos sobre ese mismo problema y he encontrado que no solo en México, en prácticamente todos los países que hacen inflation targeting, al final del día el salario es el ancla de la inflación, ¿no? Y la distribución del ingreso es el ancla de la inflación. Y no es nada extraño, porque si para conseguir la meta de inflación ha de tenerse una moneda fuerte, un tipo de cambio no competitivo, ¿verdad? Bueno, eso resta rentabilidad a los comerciables. Una forma de resarcirse de eso es deprimiendo los salarios, ¿no? O sea, haciendo deflación salarial, ¿no? O sea, y haciendo que crezca menos que la productividad. Entonces sí coincido con esto. O sea, ya no lo presenté aquí, no lo dije, pero en otros trabajos he hecho ese argumento de que efectivamente la distribución del ingreso está a la base de todo el proceso. Gracias.
Muchas gracias por la presentación, excelente mesa que tuvimos hoy sobre México y Estados Unidos. Y vamos a hacer dos cosas para concluir este evento. Primero, agradecerles a los participantes por su participación en este evento. Aquí, pues, humildemente les damos una colección de libros. Ya parezco al señor de las ligas, pero nada que ver. Y
gracias.
Y en segundo lugar, pues pedirle a